Good evening and greeting everybody. I am Biko Mani Patao Soktivi, right now live from Seattle in the state of Washington, USA. It is 7 p.m. right now. I'm sorry for the delay. Usually we start our live show at 6 p.m. PDT Pacific daytime. But because of my busy schedule, so we have a delay for 1 hour. And I also would like, before we begin our live show, would like to pay my respect to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And also would like to pay respect to both venerable Dhamma speakers. First, we have Venerable Mahamangala Kyoto Singwati from Wat Kemararam, San Jose, California. And next we have invited Venerable Mahapanyo Justin live from Wat Santa Ana, located in Santa Ana, also California. We are very honored to have most of you here in order to share on this very interesting topic entitled The Buddha, the Great Buddha, the greatest exponent of non-violence. So we will have to dive deep into a little bit detail about how the teachings of non-violence discussed in the Buddha, in Buddhism, and or taught by the Buddha in the moment. So I just would like to inform that this program is organized by the Cambodian Buddhist Monk Society in USA, presided over by Timothy Bangsang, the abbot of Wat Manisataram in the state of Minnesota, USA. And our program mainly focus at propagating, disseminating the Buddha's teaching across the world in the hope that our Cambodian Americans, youths and younger generation will benefit from our live show. And also it is a space where we as a Cambodian monks be able to practice to share what we have learned and practice our English as well, so to speak. So without further ado, let me begin by asking the first question to Venerable Sungwati from Wat Kemararam. Thank you for joining with us today. And we have learned a great deal about the theory of non-violence from the teaching of the Buddha. And I believe that the world knows that the teaching of Buddhism is very strongly emphasized on non-violence. The Buddha was the person who had always talked about, being kind, being compassionate to all kinds of life in this universe, not just a human being, but also, animals, insects, not to kill, as we have seen, as we are aware of the first Buddhist precept, Panatipata Veramani, not to kill, not to harm any life. So we will come to that in a moment. Before that, I would like to ask Venerable Singwati to explain a little bit the importance of the theory of non-violence, why the Buddha focused to talk about the non-violence. Is it so important in society that we all need to develop non-violence? Ante, please.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to pay homage to all venerable monks throughout the United States and also throughout Cambodia and overseas, besides USA and Cambodia. Thank you very much for the question that you raised just now, Venerable TV. So I think the method of non-violence is very important in human society. The Buddha taught us to avoid this to avoid violence, because the danger of violence can create many problems more and more. That's why when we commit violence, even though we win in that committing, but we will have a reaction later on. For example, when you fight against someone else and they lose you, and they are not be quiet. They are not quiet. Later on, when they have a chance, they will retaliate on you for what we have done on them, like that. So the loser will take the chance or take time to retaliate on us, take revenge on us like that. That's why the Buddha know this problem. So he did not support violence. He only support non-violent action because he can see that danger in that way. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing insightful information about what the Buddha's teaching relates to non-violence. And I would like to move this question to what about Justin also. What is your idea concerning the theory of non-violence? Why is it so important in the teaching of the Buddha?
Why is it so important? Okay. First and foremost, with the acme of my respects to the Buddha's teachings, I prostrated myself with my 5 arms to my deceased parents, Maha Upasaka Tanchiukin Upasaka Tung Leng, whom I considered as my gods, my first teachers, my Brahmas, which is in accordance with the Buddha's utterances. Secondly, as prominent, I pay homage to Triple Gem, the 3 jewels, which are the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Arya Sangha. Thirdly, with my profound respects, namaste to the most venerable Bhante Mahayunan, who is my Upasambhada, the abbot of Sanayana Monastery. In addition, namaste to the most venerable abbot Meng Sang, who is the president of Cambodian Buddhist monk associations. Furthermore, namaste to the most venerable Wuti and the most venerable Tivi, and to all the most venerables who dwell in the United States and in Cambodia. Last but not least, my acquaintance, my benevolence, my compassions to all the Buddhist followers and the non-Buddhists, including all living beings. Why did the Buddha teach non-violence? As it has mentioned, as you have alluded, most venerable TV, of the 5 precepts. The first one is quite obvious. Abstains from killing, right? When one's killed, one accumulated the bad karma. The life, the mind will never be ended. Suffering continues endlessly and aimlessness. One has to understand what Buddhism is all about. Compassion, non-violence, we need to consider that. In the 5 precepts, the obvious one is the first one, no killings. But if you look into that 5 precepts, the Buddha had taught us non-violence, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, no intoxicants. Those are all non-violence. When one steals, what would happen? Consequences, one will get beat up. As the most venerable Wuti had alluded briefly upon that. When one's committed sexual misconduct, one way or the other, the consequences will be suffering. Same as lying, same as intoxicants. When you are intoxicated, ones get angry, violence occurs. The Buddha had taught us in the 5 precepts already. There's always consequences The Buddha taught us that why it is so important, just as I alluded, to end suffering. Violence will never end suffering. The innocents will pay for violence. For instance, the war that's going on right now, there's so many innocent people out there. It's because of one person care only for oneself. Another word is ego. It is only me you should respect, no others. Violence engenders from all sorts of issues. For a leader to continue leading the country successfully, he must undertake the 5 precepts. Not only undertake not only undertaking it, he needs to comprehend it, fully comprehend it, conform to it in order to eradicate violence. If one thinks that one should be a good leader, one should undertake the 5 precepts and conform to it. Do not just repeat after the monk. Okay, it must be in the mind. To answer your questions is that it is quite important that the Buddha had taught us the non-violence so that we can attain the enlightenment and ending the sufferings.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing very wonderful idea. I like the way you put it. You put it beautifully. You relate the 5 precepts somewhat as the causes of violence as well. And as both of you indicated about the first precept is very much related to the theory of non-violence, and no wonder it become the first precept among the 5. It might be very important. It must be very important. I mean, because when we refrain from killing, because our life is important, right? We love life. We love our life. We want to be happy. We want to be free from danger, from harming, and so do others. Nobody in the world who doesn't want to live, right? Everybody wants to live. That's why this is so important. And okay, I would like to turn to Venerable Singwati. Maybe you can share from the Buddhist point of view. Maybe how many types of violence are there before we discuss about the root cause of violence, where violence comes from. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit about like how many types of violence when we talk in Buddhism, and what are the root cause of violence.
Thank you so much for this question. I answer this question according to the teaching of the Buddha. Violence occurs from our mind first. Yes. If our mind has 3 kinds of unwholesome root, that is greed, hatred, and delusion, there will be a kind of violence occur. Actually, greed, hatred, and delusion are the root cause of violence. Yeah, and for violence, I think there are many kinds of violence, like domestic violence. We call domestic violence. Violence happen in the family, like husband beat the wives, and sometimes the wife beat the husband. For example, the husband like to go out to drink wines, singing karaoke, and he did not take time to work to earn money in order to support the family. That's why he come back home, his wife will blame or scold him. And sometimes he is angry. When he is angry, he beat her wife, you know. That is because of anger or hatred, it also can cause violence. That is it cause. And sometimes violence occur because of greed. For example, when a man see a beautiful lady and he want to get her to be wife, but she reject it or she refuse not to accept him to be his couple or her couple like that. So he also get angry with the lady. Sometimes he can kill her because of anger arise in his mind together with his greed mind. So I think this is the problems and the cause, and also delusion. Delusion, when person don't know what is right, what is wrong, he may do something wrong without knowing that this cause is bad or this action is bad like that. Sometimes he committed cruelly. So this is because of his delusion. He did not know what is right, what is wrong, what is suitable, what is not suitable, what should be done, what not should be done like that. And this kind of violence, it also, it has origination from our mind, you know. So we need to train our minds. Like when we observe the 5 precepts, especially the first one, the Buddha said, Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Sammadiyami. And I undertake the precept not to kill any living beings. For example, this kind of precept is not to kill living beings. It's so that we need to promise ourselves not to kill or not to take lives of others. When we promise like that, we can show our loving kindness to all living beings, not only just humans, but all living beings in the universe. And this kind of precept, that is the first one, it is very great. It's the foundation of not committing violence, support non-violent idea from the Buddha teaching.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting. Even United Nations also often talk about the non-violence from the Buddhist perspective, as you know, the Buddha was one of the greatest men in the world who ever, emphasize about the non-violence, and that is what the world today really needs. The world today really needs non-violence, really need peace, so to speak, because of from country to country at the time being, people kept throwing hatred toward one another, which result in social discrimination, social racism. A lot of things has been happening in our daily life, and so non-violent is the key word to find peace and happiness for the world. That's why we take. I think we are trying to take a closer look from the Buddhist point of view. How can we relate this theory from the teaching of the Buddha in order to share some ideas to the viewers to better understand about this concept, and also be able to build peace within ourselves, also build the cause of non-violence. So I would like to turn back to Venerable Justin Panyo. If we think about the types of violence, what do you think about, violence can occur from, from this way or from this sort of things from this form. You know, it could be like physical violence, verbal violence, and mental violence. What do you think about the types of violence that it can occur, originate from?
Well, as the most venerable Buddhi had alluded already, that because of the greed, hatred, and delusion, and those terminology, they use it a lot in Majjhima Nikaya and Samyutta Nikaya. In Anguttara Nikaya, it's a little bit, which I'm about to complete my readings right now. And it is the mind. It came from the mind. I just want to add a little bit more of the most venerable Buddhi had said. Greed, it's not only there. Okay, it's not just the greed itself, but the envy is included in there. Once the envy occurs, violence occurs, whether verbally, just like you have alluded, the most venerable activity, whether verbally or mentally, because I personally had that experience already. A lot of people envy of me. Why? Because I can just say it right there, because I can speak English better than they can. Those are envy. Okay. Once that occurred, the mental violence started to happen. Once the mental violence started to happen, the body, the physical will occur. So it is the mind, as most venerable Buddhi had already alluded. Okay. So it came from the mind, but one has to understand it. One can end at that as well if one were able to comprehend the Buddha's utterances properly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Hatred. Hatred. I am sure you have gone through it, most venerable TV.
Yeah.
I'm sure people have envied of you, one way or another, jealous of you. When that occurred, violence started to happen. And the hatred, hatred, it's not just the mental violence. Hatred is becoming physical violence, most definitely. As we have seen it already during the past or during the pandemic. Look how many people got killed. That is because of ignorance as well. Okay. They think that all Asians are Chinese. Even Cambodian, they think Chinese. I personally look Chinese.
Yeah, definitely.
So when I go to Chinatown, they think I'm Chinese. When I go to Thai town, they think I'm Thai. When I go to Cambodian town, they never thought I'm Cambodian. They even talk behind my back in Cambodian. So anyway, back to the topic. So the delusion, okay? Delusion is also the cause of violence as well. Again, it's coming from the mind. If we have a serene mind, we'll be able to control shunning from violence.
Yeah.
So it is the cause of that. Same as I have alluded in the 5 precepts, the cause of it. The first one is obvious, right? No killing. But the second one, no stealing. Look in Cambodia. What happened when the thief get caught?
Beaten.
Yeah, exactly. They get beaten.
Beaten to death.
Yeah, if they don't stop the owners, right? So that's because of no compassion. They should think. But they say, no, we have to teach them a lesson. Otherwise, they're going to keep doing it.
Does that gonna solve the problem?
No, it will not solve the problems. Once Well, first of all, the thief, it's because of his bad conduct. People think that he deserved it. He's human being, okay? He needs to make a living. It is in the wrong way. It is in the Eight Noble Fold Path, right? That's why the Buddha has taught us all dhammas concatenated to each other. One leads to another, will never end it. But anyways, back to the 5 precepts. The third one, commit adultery. What would happen when the husband get caught or the wives get caught? Verbally abused, mentally abused, etc., so on and so forth. Harsh speech, verbally abused, verbally violence, right? Intoxicant. If you drive when you are intoxicated, you cause violence to others, not only to yourself, correct? So all of those, it's in there. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, very much. I mean, when we relate the Buddha's teaching about the cause of non-violence, like, through body, speech, and mind, we could understand why the Buddha taught like the Tassa Kusala Kammapada, the 10 wholesome deed, which is very, very important. It covers every aspect of our daily activity, the way we do things, physically, verbally, and also mentally. So when violence arises, it could only arise, through these 3 ways, right? Physically, verbally, and mentally. That's why when we learn to observe the precept, the rule of training, like not to kill any living beings, not to steal, not to commit adultery, not to tell lies, not to use harsh word, slandering, backbiting, divisive speech, frivolous talk, nonsense, useless talk, and so on. And 3 mental action as well. So I think it's very much important when we relate this theory to the non-violence, and which could be applied in today society, because a lot of things have been happening not just in United States of America, but everywhere in the world. Violence happen in many different forms, in the forms of domestic violence, family violence, political violence, social violence, international, national, in different levels. But overall, we could trace it back to the origin of the violence, originate from the mind of unwholesome, like we have greed, hatred, and delusion, as both of you have been mentioning earlier. So I want to turn this question to Venerable Sungwati, because we are trying to elucidate the great qualities of the Buddha, and one of which the Buddha was the greatest exponent of non-violence. I would like Venerable Sungwati to describe the qualities of the Buddha in terms of non-violent. How, we know that the Buddha is endowed with great wisdom, with great qualities, appearance, good conduct, wisdom, compassion, purity, and so on. But what is something special about him in relation with the non-violence? Can you bring out any suttas, any real incident that, that might relate the Buddha's quality to the theory of non-violence?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. Actually, the Buddha, he preached many sutta about non-violence. But here I would like to emphasize in one Dhammapada verse, the Buddha said that he who conquers self is the greatest victor. I mean, if we can win ourselves, it is better than winning other, right? That is the theory of non-violence. So if we try not to take revenge or kill others or win other in the battle, and we try to win ourselves, that is defilements in our minds, that is better than winnings other in the war, because winning in the war or winning others, it really have bad results in returns. As I mentioned earlier, people will take revenge later on if they become stronger. That's why the Buddha said the best winner is to win ourselves first. When we win ourselves, that is the great winnings. We never lose it. But if we win others, sometimes we can be loser later on, right? That's why the Buddha used this theory as a great theory of non-violence. And I also like to compare this theory according to the theory of Albert Einstein. He also encouraged not to commit violence as the Buddha taught. He said that we should strive not to use violence in fighting for our cause. But by non-participation in anything you believe is evil, he said that in any problems, we should not use violence. The Buddha also encouraged us not to commit violence because he knows the result. The result of violence is very dangerous for both winner and loser. Right?
Right. Yeah, it
Yeah.
will build up, more hatred towards one another.
Yeah. That's why he also mentioned that hatred never ceases by hatred. Hatred ceases only by love. Right?
Yeah.
If you show hatred to others, the other people also show hatred in return or toward us. So only by love or compassion we can subdue the violence or remove the violence from our minds. So, if we know that this thing is not good, this action is bad, we should not participate in doing that. We should avoid that. Yeah. Like in one story, occurs between the Sakya and Kaliya kingdom about the problems that happen between the two kingdoms. They have quarrels about the water in Rohini River. When the water in Rohini River become less, the other kingdom try to take much more water than other part. And so the other side also try to take much more water than the other part. That's why they have quarrel with each other. And when the quarrel becomes more and more dangerous, bigger and bigger problems, they happen to wage war against each other. And at the time the Buddha come to solve the problems between the two kingdoms, he said that the water in the rivers and your blood in the two kingdoms, which one is more important than? If you kill each others, you will shed blood, and most of the two people in the two kingdoms will die. So if they die all in the two kingdoms, they cannot take any advantage in the water in the Rohini River like that. That's why the people in the two kingdoms understand that if they commit violence by waging war, many people will get killed in the war. And it is a kind of dangerous violence. And when all people die, their life means nothing, because of the water. That's why they try to to be calmed down, not to show anger toward each other. Yeah, because they know that the blood of themselves is more important than the water in the river. So they should not set their blood because of the water.
Yeah, life is more valuable, right?
Yeah, our life is more valuable than the water.
Yeah.
That's why you should try to solve a problem in non-violent way, not
Yeah.
violence. Yeah,
So
thank you.
that's a great analogy, a great example of the Buddha, who, as we know, that he was the greatest exponent of nonviolence. When he saw that the war is going to happen, he knew that it would result in the hatred, a lot of hatred, because these two kingdoms, it was not their first battle, right? There were
Yeah,
many times that they were fighting each other, in terms of caste system. A lot of trouble had been happening already, and
yeah,
what to do if he didn't go there to stop, and it was gonna cost millions of lives. And so he went there and tried to explain the value of life. If people get to kill each other, what the use in there in getting water while we already die, right? So
yeah,
we better solve it, peacefully in a non-violent way. And so thank you for raising that. I think it's very important example of the Buddha, set by the Buddha to the world today. We could always learn from his example. And I would like to quote that verse that you just mentioned earlier from the Dhammapada. It is the Yamakawaka verse 5. It says, Nahi verena verani samanti tha kuda janang averena cha samanti tha esa dhammo sanantano. Never by hatred is hatred appeased, but it is appeased by kindness, by love alone. This is an eternal truth. And also Dhammapada verse 223 in the Uttara Upasika Vatu. It say, Ako te na jine go thang sa thung sa tuna jine katariyang dane na sajje na lika ve vadinang. One should win anger through kindness, weakness through goodness, wickedness through goodness, selfishness through charity, and falsehood through truthfulness. So I just would like to relate what you just mentioned from the Dhammapada. And I think this is very important Buddha's teaching when we try to talk about the non-violence, because every word of the Buddha, when he uttered it out, for the sake of non-violence, for the sake of our peace and harmony in society, in the world, he very much concerned about people's well-being, not just for the sake of his own follower, for those who call themselves as Buddhists, but the Buddha paid attention. He was very much concerned with the world's, well-being of the world, of the many. So I would like to put another question to Venerable Justin concerning with that. Maybe you have read, some stories about the Buddha's kindness or loving kindness, in terms of non-violence. Can you point out, some story? It could be a Jataka story or any sutra that talks about the great quality of the Buddhas in terms of non-violence, that he do not use hatred against hatred. Instead, he always solve the problem by using non-violence. Can you think of some story?
Yes, my first option was about the river story that the most vulnerable Buddha took it already. When he starts speaking about it, I go, oh, good. He did not mention anything about the river. The only river. That's
quite famous
one.
It's quite very popular one.
Yes, it is quite popular. But before I get into the story, I just want to allude it a little bit more in regards of the envy. When the most venerable abbot Meng Sang came to Santa Ana Monastery to visit, I remember it limpidly in my mind. He alluded, "Kom ao chronine knia," the envy part. Oh, that is sitting in my mind. So thank him very much for saying that. And I hope all the most vulnerable monks do not envy of each other. Once you envy of each other, then violence will become one way or the other. Okay,
that will be called the Sangha violence, another form of violence.
that form of violence I also written in my short discourses as well. So anyway, the next story that I will bring it up about the Buddha's teaching had taught the non-violence is that because of the King Ajata Sutru.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, he wanted to conquer one of the country, right? The Buddha, yes. So that is my second option, most wonderful Buddha, since you took the river part. So yes, I don't remember this part, and I didn't prepare for that. It just came after I have heard the river story. I think it was in the 8th aspect that the Buddha had brought it up. You have to go in there in order to conquer that part. You don't need to do it violence. You don't need to kill, right?
Yeah.
So there's another way of conquering it. So I don't remember all of them, so I didn't prepare for that.
Conquer anger by love. Loving
right. Yeah. So that's another good story that the Buddha had taught the non-violence. You know, you don't need to kill. In other words, having a spy being, in that country and determine that there's always of solving the issues. Okay. So, however, I would like to respond. I know this is not the time to respond to the questions. It came from Sri Pik Hu. Okay, she mentioned that Buddhism aims at creating a society where the struggle, so on and so forth. Okay, so it is a good point. She copied it from number what the Buddha's taught, page 84. I don't know which book it is.
The book we've been learning. Yeah, that's
the book you've been learning.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know who wrote that.
Venerable Vaipulara Rahula is the author. Yeah,
it's the author. Now, I have written, it is being published, as you know, Most Venerable TV. The term Buddhism, you have to understand what it means. Okay, to make it long story short, personally, Buddhism, the word Buddhism means that the system, a distinctive practice to be awakened. Okay, that is first aim that the Buddha has taught his retinues. To be awakened from what? To be awakened from suffering. The non-violence, the issues, it's just coming along. Most important, most prominent, that all the Buddhist monks comprehended that we must be on our way to attain enlightenment. In Akinkiya Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 6, and on the 6 aspects, if a monk should wish, talking about his deceased parents and so on and so forth, have his deceased parents or relatives, so at the Modana to receive the merits of ordination. This is my words, okay? In Akinkeya, it's a bit more complicated. Have the deceased relatives to at the Modana to receive the ordinations, the merits of ordination. However, the monks must not forget that he has to be in the middle path to attain enlightenment. So Buddhism, in order for us to comprehend it properly, we must study, we must read, we must comprehend, we must conform to the Buddha's teaching properly. If the most venerable monks who have been ordained 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, if they could comprehend the Buddha's teaching properly, they would have not been disrupted. That's how I believe.
Yeah.
I know this is off from the violence part a little bit, but it just concatenates it one thing to another. So I think I should end that, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Go for the next
Yeah,
question.
thank you for sharing some more information about it. And I believe that if we want to raise, there are a lot of story, you know, set the example of the Buddha in terms of non-violent. Like I just read that Dhammapada of you know, Upasika Uttara. So that was a great example how she used non-violence to cease the hatred, you know. Yeah, I think the viewer, if you have not learned about it, you should check out about the Uttara, yeah, Uttara Theri, yeah, Uttara Upasika, sorry, Uttara Upasika Vatu. From the Dhammapada. That was the great story about the non-violence. I don't want to talk about it since we don't have much time. And another story, like when the Buddha, you know, confronted with the Nalagiri, you know, the elephant Nalagiri, he did not use hatred towards the elephant when the elephant was running toward, you know, to you know, try to destroy him or to harm him, but he just spread his loving kindness, his compassion. And like another case, like the Angulimala, the story of Angulimala, he was very hatred, he's full of anger and aversion, right? He was running, chasing after the Buddha, calling the Buddha to stop, and you know, holding in hand with the sword, he was trying to kill the Buddha or something, but the Buddha just used his own way to change the situation, you know, instead of turning or throwing back the hatred towards Angulimala. And finally, yeah, they got enlightened, you know, through the teachings of the Buddha. So I think that the Buddha has so many great examples, the way he solved the problem, the way he confronted with the situation, you know, he just turned that away from returning hatred towards hatred, because he know that that's not gonna cease the problem. It's like when you return hatred with hatred, return evil with evil, it only, you know, it's like you put gas over fire, right? It will only get more burning, double the problem. It will never cease. So instead we should water the fire, use the water to cease the fire. Don't use the gas or don't use the oil to to cease the fire. It's not gonna work. So I would like to ask the question to Venerable Sungwati. We have been talking a lot about violence. Maybe now you could share the way to, you know, to eliminate violence, to cease the violence. It's been happening from individual level up to the international level, the violence. So what should be the best way to cease the violence, you know, from the Buddhist point of view?
I think the best way from Buddhist point of view to eliminate violence, as in the story that you have mentioned just now, we need to use patience. In Pali we call kanti, and also loving kindness. Like in the story of Angulimala, you mentioned just now, and Nalagiri, when elephants and Angulimala got angry so much at the Buddha did not show hatred toward them. He just saw his compassion, loving kindness, and he was patient. He did not use his angers toward them. So he tried to make question toward Angulimala. And then when he realized the truth, he stopped his anger and he did not commit his violence against the Buddha. So the best way is to have patience and need to have loving kindness. So our loving kindness, even to our enemy, not just our friends, you know.
But
That is the best way.
it's easier said than done, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, people say it's easier said than done, right? It's hard when we face, especially when we confront with someone whom we don't like. And how are we going to be patient?
The more we can be patient, the better it is.
how we to do that?
But
People
if
might
you cannot,
yeah.
if you cannot maintain your patience or loving kindness, you will not be called a non-violent Buddhist person like that. Because in Buddhism, there is no room for us that the Buddha taught us to commit any violence.
It reminds me, I'm laughing a little bit, I'm sorry. It reminds me the story of Anatta that one grandfather was trying to teach the children, the Anatta thing, and the children try to test him whether he's really deep into practice of Anatta. Then the one person throw, something at him. He said, "Oh, it's so painful. Don't throw me. Don't harm me like that." And then the children say, "Oh, that is Anatta, not you, not yourself. Don't cling on to that." I mean, in this story, it's funny, but it reflects that it's easier said than done when we also teach the theory of patience. We know that patience is also the key to non-violent, right? But it's hard when we put it into practice, especially when in a situation when we are angry. So people tend to lose the sense of control, sense of mindfulness, right? When we are angry with something or at someone. In that situation, how are we to behave ourselves? I mean, what is the way to calm down the anger at that moment?
We need to have metta or loving kindness in order to stop violence. For example, if the person is so angry toward us or get angry with us or want to make quarrel with us by using not good verbal speech like that, so we should have metta or loving kindness or compassion toward that person by thinking that this person is ignorant. That's why he did not know what is right and wrong. That's why he liked to commit that kind of action like that. When we saw our compassionate and loving kindness feeling toward him, we can remove our angers not to commit violence against him like that. And if everyone want to win each other, there will be no peace. Surely violence must occur. Idea of Albert Einstein, he also say, when the idea of humanity's war and conquest, those two become as dangerous as a razor in the hands of a child of 3. So there will be no peace. They will create more and more. If the two part of people try to win each other, like you said, it is not different from putting a gas on the fire that is burning. So it become burning more and more like that. And if we fight each other, or we wage war against each other, there is no justice in war, the Buddha said. Or there is no justice in violence. When we declare war or commit violence, we justify it. When others declare war, we say that it is unjust. Then who can justify war or violence? So men should not follow the law of jungle to overcome human problems. Like, in the case of current situation that occurs at South China Sea, many countries in Southeast Asia that try to occupy some islands on the sea over there, especially the problems that occur between Spratly Islands and also Paracel Islands, Philippines, Indonesia, Japan, Vietnam, and China. They try to take advantages in that islands individually. So when the other country have not agreed with that proposal, So China also tried to use his power to take over their islands. And if he tried his best or its best to do that, surely the war will happen. Yeah. So they need to know by waging war, it will be more problem in this modern world because many countries in the world have developed modern weapons. Like you see now,
just to destroy each other.
yeah, when there are many countries who have nuclear bomb or nuclear weapons, like Americans, Soviet, North Korea, Iran, China, India. Yeah. So this kind of power can make massive destructions in the world, not just in the South China Sea. Yes. So when the third war happens, it will be very dangerous for this world.
Yeah.
And we cannot justify the war, which one is right, which one is wrong. Because when we make a war Canada, we say we ourselves is right, but the other part say that the other side say that it is wrong.
There is no justice war, right?
Yeah. That's why, like the book that you mentioned just now, the Venerable Buddha, the Venerable Vapola Rahula, he mentioned in his book What the Buddha Taught, page 84. The Buddha said, Jerry, was just as clear on politics, on world peace. It is too well known to be repeated here that Buddhism advocates and preaches nonviolence and peace as its universal message, and does not approve of any kinds of violence or destruction of life. According to Buddhism, there is nothing that can be called just war, which is only fortune, coins, and put into circulation to justify and accuse hatred, cruelty, violence, and massacre. Who decide what is just or unjust? The mighty and the victorious are just, and weak and the defeated are unjust. Our war is always just, and your war is always unjust. So Buddhism does not accept this position. That's why Buddhism and the Buddha did not encourage people to use violence by waging war or any international violence. So we can know the danger of violence, especially the dangerous violence by waging a war with modern weapons is more dangerous than before because now it is advanced in technology that can produce very powerful weapon to kill not only life of living beings, also destroy the whole world just within a few seconds, if they use that powerful weapons like a nuclear bomb and so on. So humans should not be stupid. They should not develop or create a dangerous weapon, and then finally that weapons can be used to kill that humankind, that is human race, the same things.
Yeah.
So we should understand that, and we should try to solve a problem in the best way, not to use violence, but by law, by disciplinary rule or regulation. That is possible, we try possible way to do that. I think it's better according to Buddhist point of view.
Yeah, thank you for sharing a lot of points, the way to end violence. So let me move to Venerable Justin. What is your suggestion, some ways or method that we can apply in order to cease the violence, starting from our individual level up to the world level?
Well, I have so many points to allude, but I think we're out of time, are we not?
Yeah,
you can go on.
Yeah, you can go for like several minutes. Yeah.
Several minutes, that's not enough.
Okay.
First of all, I want to respond to Angulimala. the reason that he became Anglimala because of envy. His classmate was envy of him, Ahimsa Gotma. That's his original name. As I have alluded earlier, violence causes from envy. Okay, that is a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Most Honorable TV. It's because of that envy, his classmate went to inform the teachers. In English, which I have read, they said that his classmate, Ahimsa Gotma classmate, went to inform the teacher, say that Ahimsa Gotma committed the third precept with his wife. That's in English. So the teacher was so angry, he could not kill the student. He told Ahimsa Gotma to go out and kill people. See how it started? It's because of that envy. Okay.
Illicit violence.
Yes. In Cambodian, I have not heard any Most Venerable Monk alluded about Ahimsa Gotma commit the adultery with the teacher's wife. Okay. But in English, according to my research, according to what I have read, they translated as that because of the classmate. Envy of Ahimsa Gotma. He was such a good student, and the teacher loved Ahimsa Gotma. So the envy student told the teacher that Ahimsa Gotma had slept with his wife. That's how it started. Okay, that's why the Buddha said, "Do not simply believe in the teacher in Kalama Sutta." Okay, one Dhamma leads to another. That's one thing that I would like to respond to. Let's stop right there. You also mentioned or asked the Most Venerable Buddha, how are you going to get Kanti? Kanti in English, I translated as forbearance or tolerance. I like the term forbearance. Okay, forbearance, how do we get that? We got that from our antecedents' lives. In addition, we must accumulate it in this lifetime. And how do we get it? To me, personally, by fully or at least 90% comprehended the three marks of existence, which also known as the three characteristics of existence. In Sanskrit, Trailak, Anicang, Dukkang, Anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, or suffering, or non-self, no self, and not self. If you can fully comprehend it, or at least 90% of it, you will accumulate the forbearance. Then you will not allow your mind to get anger. So by fully comprehended, non-self, this is not mine. No matter what you do to me, I have personally been pointed to my face, finger pointed to my face twice at the motherland. Oh, I suppressed my feelings, not allow the exasperation to amass. But when one of them accusing me as a spurious monk, as a fake monk, they said, "You are a fake monk." Song Klein Klai, look like Song Klein Klai. Oh, you know what? My exasperation started it.
Mental violence started, right?
No violence. I responded back verbally. When I responded back verbally, they didn't want to hear it because they
verbal violence.
No verbal violence. I just wanted to respond it back properly. He didn't want to hear it. The reason being is that all my responses was according to the Buddha's teaching. And the ignorant people, the delinquent, culprit person did not want to hear it. So that's also in my second book that I'm about to publish. Hopefully I get enough money for it. I have written that in my second chapter, how one can accumulate the forbearance. First of all, it came from your antecedents' lives. Secondly, you must do it in this life. If you did not have it 100%, violence will continue to keep on going. Look at Pravesandara. Pravesandara, during that time, he still had violence in his mind because of Tachurachua wanted to kill or hitting his children. He did not accumulate the full forbearance. The violence was still in his mind. That's how he did not attain enlightenment. Okay, so it's all concatenated. So I think I ran out of time already. I can keep on going on this part, but I'm gonna stop right here. I'll turn it back to you, most venerable Thierry.
Thank you so much because of the time. I think the topic is very interesting. And then the Buddha, the greatest exponent of non-violence. So because of we are running out of time, I would like to give both of the speaker 1 minute to conclude today, like kind of takeaway message concerning with the non-violence. And the Venerable Sivati, please.
Thank you for this sharing. For me, just have short ideas. That is taking the idea of Albert Einstein's. He said the fate of humanity is entirely dependent on its moral developments. It is not different from Buddhism, you know. In Buddhism, the Buddha also taught us to observe moral precept. That is a basic rules to stop violence, right? When we train our mind to be good in bodily action, verbal action, and mental action, the action that come out from the trained mind will be good, not violent. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Honorable Mahapanyo.
Okay, my conclusion is that in order to accumulate non-violence is to undertake the 5 precepts and conform to it. Okay, you don't need to repeat after the most venerable monks. You just keep it in your mind all the time. It doesn't have to be on a Uposatha day. It has to be every single day. Undertake the 5 precepts, conform to the 5 precepts, practice it every second. Okay, and in order to accumulate forbearance, khanti, you must comprehend the 3 marks of existence, also known as the 3 characteristics of existence: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness or suffering, and the non-self, no self, and not self. If you can understand that at least 90% of it, violence will not occur. Okay.
Thank you so much, both Venerable Dhamma speaker, for sharing your knowledge of Dhamma concerning with today's topic, Buddha, the greatest exponents of non-violence. Hope our audience have learned something useful about today's discussion and could put that into application to build more non-violence so that we all will live in peace and harmony. The world will live in harmony. So I would like to wrap up today's discussion by accumulating kusala, punya, merit that have been done through our Dhammadana. May this merit accrue and go to all beings in the whole universe. May all beings live happily and harmoniously. May all beings be liberated from physical suffering and mental suffering. And finally, I would like to end Zoom live today by repeating the phrase from Venerable Mahakosananda. He said, every step is peace. When we make peace with ourselves, we make peace with the world. May all beings be peaceful, be happy, and be well. So, goodbye. Thank you. Good night.
Yes. Goodbye for tonight.